and welcome to today's episode of CreditChat Live. My name is Christina Roman, and I'm the Consumer Education and Advocacy Manager for Experian. And I'm joined by Rod Griffin, Experian's Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy. Now, today's episode is a little bit different because Rod and I are typically behind the screen. Rod is based out of Texas. I'm based out of California. And today we have a unique opportunity because we are at the National Educator Conference, which is presented by the Jumpstart Coalition. We're in Boston, Massachusetts, and we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. This conference brings together more than 300 teachers to provide financial literacy resources to them. And so we wanted to pull a few teachers aside and really get to learn more about them, get to learn more about the work that they're doing, what specific issues are going on in the states that they're working in. So I'm really excited because today we're joined by Scott Milner. Now, Scott Milner comes to us from Broken Arrow High School from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And I'm thrilled to talk to him a little bit more, get to learn more about what's going on in Oklahoma and the important work that you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us, Scott.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been working with Jumpstart and what it means for you to be an ambassador for Jumpstart?
Yeah, I went to my first Jumpstart conference in Cleveland. That was back in 2018. And so I've been to 5 conferences total, including this one, throughout that last 7-8 years. To be an ambassador, after getting to see so many passionate teachers at all of these conferences that I have attended so far, to be an ambassador is really an honor because there are a lot of passionate teachers for finance out there. And I've discovered that through Jumpstart and through this conference. So to serve as an ambassador, it's really an honor and privilege. And I hope I can serve my fellow teachers well as in this role. But it really is just an honor because it's a great organization to be part of and something I've kind of looked up to those ambassador teachers in the past.
Now, what inspired you to start teaching financial literacy?
I stumbled upon it, probably like many jobs and careers we fall into. I stumbled into teaching finance because I was teaching math at the Broken Arrow High School. Actually, I was a math nerd for a long time, and I envisioned myself teaching math for a long time. And at Broken Arrow High School, the first year I actually got to teach there, I discovered there was a class called Financial Algebra. And that was a combination of math, which I loved, and finance, which has always been a kind of a hobby and interest of mine. And I was super fortunate. That's the very next year I got to teach that course. And that's where I experienced the impact that financial literacy can have on students. Math, algebra is certainly important, and a lot of students need that as well. But the financial literacy component of that course really inspired me, and I got to experience students quickly have been influenced and impacted by that content just right out of the gate. Since most of them have jobs or they're graduating soon, they're going to be fully financially independent really soon, if not already at that point. So I just saw the immediate impact that that course had, and I've been a major advocate and fan of financial literacy ever since.
So when you say impact, what I have some personal experiences too in classrooms or watch kids, but and I'm guessing similar things, but how did you know that they were impacted? What did the kids kind of do or say?
Yeah, one of the very first years that I taught it, and I was still a relatively new teacher too when I first began teaching that course. So to hear this comment, it really stuck out to me. I had a senior, and that student told me this was the most useful class I've ever taken in my whole school career. And that was the first year that I taught that course when I had a lot to learn with teaching that, and so to hear that comment, for it to be a really authentic comment from a student, I just knew that this was the course that I wanted to teach for a really long time because of that.
So what is financial algebra?
It's a combination of algebraic concepts and incorporating the personal finance topics within it. Now that course has been changed. It's called Math of Finance. And so there's a little bit more I can do with it. I don't have to just follow the strict algebraic concepts, but I can incorporate all kinds of math algebra. I do a ton of percent work in that course because we run into percents in our daily lives, financially and otherwise. all the time. And so students need to know how to work with percents. But
Mhm.
no, my class is a math class technically. I basically started as a personal finance course and incorporate the math when I can, because I know the finance is actually the heart of that course.
Yeah. I love that you're doing that, because we've talked, in the other interviews about how there's so many classes that you take in school and it's like, when am I ever going to apply this? And then this is such an applicable course. And I also, what I'm loving about doing these interviews is that I'm learning how financial literacy is incorporated. So yours is a combined math and financial education class, and then others that like have a specific financial literacy class. So it's so interesting to see how it's being incorporated in different schools in different states. I think that's really unique.
Yeah, right.
So along those lines, so what does, part of the conversations we're having is, what are the different perspectives on what makes a personal finance course effective? How do we define that? And how do we know that the personal finance content is achieving what we need it to, and changing behaviors around money and credit and investing, all of those things that we talk about? How do we know it's effective?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we know it's effective because we give them some very applicable things that they can do in the immediate. So I've had students open banking accounts because they're taking my class and they have that little bit of confidence to do that. I've had students open investment accounts, brokerage accounts when they turn 18 in the middle of my course. And so I believe that the confidence is probably where we know that it's being effective, because they have the confidence to do that next step, whatever makes sense for them. And as they're becoming more independent adults and financially independent, it can be really intimidating. There's so many things to learn in the finance world that isn't taught in school. And so the way I look at it is I want to get my students to be confident to take that next step, whatever that is for them individually. And it can be as basic as opening a checking account at a local bank.
Yeah. Now, I know that initially I thought there were no state requirements in Oklahoma, but you mentioned that there are actually some, but how it's implemented is different. And can you talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the obstacles that you have to overcome as a teacher in this space?
Yeah. So Oklahoma has a graduation requirement that is personal financial literacy. So it sounds like that's the golden rule that we want across the country, but it's not mandated that it's a face-to-face course. So many school districts kind of skirt that or get the graduation requirement completed or met just by having students walk through some modules, watch a few videos, even just from YouTube, click through a multiple choice quiz, and then they get like that check for having personal financial literacy. That's their graduation requirement, and they don't need to do anything else. So not every school district, not every school does that, but that's certainly how some schools do meet that requirement. And I would say in my school, Broken Arrow, which is the biggest high school in Oklahoma, actually, not very many students are really getting the effective financial literacy. So many students are, I would say the majority are just clicking through some modules to get that graduation requirement met. So the obstacle then becomes how, I guess, at first, at my level, at my school, how do I get students to take my course, which I know is an effective financial literacy course. And there's obstacles with that. My class is a math elective, and so they have to have room in their schedule just to take a math elective. So that's one obstacle. And then as you get a little bit higher up to the state level, trying to change or improve that legislation so that it's more specific to being a face-to-face course as opposed to just a set of standards that a student needs to demonstrate they have met, no matter the method.
Oh, wow.
So how do people get involved? And we haven't asked this, and maybe you have some thoughts on it, at the state level. I know Jumpstart has state coalitions around the country, and maybe we don't encourage people enough or make people aware enough of those. Is that something you see? How can people get involved? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, I'll be asked that question too. I mean, I probably need to do more to investigate how to change it at the state level. I had a buddy, not anymore, but I had a buddy who was a state representative, and I was like this close to approaching him about that actually, and just didn't. But I think it is talking to honestly our local legislators and just getting that in their kind of in their minds, and not to with the goal of being negative around schools, but I believe that we need to expose how a lot of school districts are kind of skirting around that requirement for the state, and to show that this is not effective financial education, but this is missing the point of that law, which I think a lot of people in our school district and around the state could agree on, that it's it's missing the point of it.
The theme of this year's conference is Together We Shine. So I would love to learn from you, how has Jumpstart enabled you as a teacher to do this important work that you're doing, and all of the collaboration that you're able to do? How has it empowered you?
It's provided so much inspiration and motivation, first and foremost. I would say that first conference I attended, I was blown away by how many people are celebrating teachers who teach financial literacy, and the number of teachers just here alone at that conference who were passionate about financial literacy. But Jumpstart Coalition specifically, the way they rally around the teachers that are teaching financial education is really inspiring, and it just validated. Maybe this was something like I felt like, oh, teaching financial literacy in my school, it's like such a niche thing, and I feel like I was kind of like the only one who really enjoyed that. So to go to a conference where hundreds of teachers were really passionate about that, and you have Jumpstart Coalition who is providing such a terrific experience for teachers who love that too. That first and foremost was huge for me, just to know that there is a community out there. There is a drive for financial literacy across the country. And I have to shout out to NGPF. That was also kind of my first experience with the conference, was an NGPF kind of side conference there in Cleveland. And just the materials that they had to support teachers, their curriculum and their activities. And then the people behind them that were also just super relational, along with the Jumpstart staff as well, and all of the big sponsors of these, Experian and Charles Schwab and so forth. But there's just a community of people and professionals that are like-minded with financial literacy. And I found that to be so inspiring and motivating. And every time I leave the conference, go back to my school, I feel so refreshed and validated. And I have a genuine refreshed drive to teach financial literacy well to my students, knowing the impact that we have.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And just for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, NGPF is Next Gen Personal Finance. And another teacher that we interviewed also talked about the impact that program has had on her, and how it has enabled her to do this important work that you're doing. And it is important work. And we're thankful to you for, putting in that time and making a difference in your students' lives.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it truly is an honor to be part of the community, and to know that so many people care about this and care about financial literacy, and see how impactful and important it is for students and for the younger generations.
So two things come to mind. One, as we talk to teachers today, we've sort of had this sort of cut across kind of demographics and school sizes. So you mentioned Broken Arrow is the largest district, and how many students are in your school and in the district? Just gives us a kind of point of comparison.
Yeah.
And then how do we help get more teachers to be enthusiastic, aware, and passionate about teaching personal finance?
Broken Arrow, we have about maybe a little bit less than 5,000 students, 9 through 12. So it's about 1,200 to 1,300 students per grade level. So huge. We're one of the top districts. There's a couple districts that have more students district-wide, but high school-wise, we are the largest. Yeah. And there's me, and then there's one other teacher who teaches that course that I teach as well. So two teachers for the 1,200, 1,300 students. to provide that financial literacy. So right there, it's not very proportionate to teachers who want to teach it or are able to teach it, and the students that really need it. And so I think that there are teachers, there are individuals out there who, if they just knew a little bit more about financial literacy, I talk to anybody, any adult, and I tell them what I teach, and they say, "Oh, I wish I would have taken a class like that." I hear
Everyone.
that all the time. And so I think if we just maybe empower teachers who would not necessarily consider themselves able to teach financial literacy, but maybe have an interest in it, if we could find a way to empower them and educate them in little ways and say, yeah, this is actually something that's really necessary, and you probably are more equipped to teach it than you think, and provide ways. Now, with just, I think there is a trend of growing financial education across the country. There's enough resources out there for teachers to be able to teach it with confidence. And so I think it's a matter of maybe teachers like me pulling aside other teachers that I think would be good at teaching that course and really just empowering them, and then having to go to our admins at our school and say, hey, we want more courses. There is a need for this course, and there's students that want to take more of these courses, and getting our admins on board to add classes and add sections.
Now, when you think about the future of financial literacy in Oklahoma, what gives you the most hope?
I would say, first and foremost, the community, again, that I have begun to just join more and more in depth, the community across the country, but the community even just across the state with Jumpstart Coalition. I'm really tight with my colleague, Cindy Vaca, who teaches the same course, and she is just as passionate about financial literacy as I am, and goes above and beyond with her students. And recently, just actually as a result of kind of this conference and the ambassador thing from the last year's conference, I got to be in touch with our Oklahoma State University Extension program. Yeah. And actually somebody reached out to me because they saw that I had got this award, whatever, with Jumpstart. And she asked me to come do a presentation for OSU, the Extension Educators for Oklahoma State University. And the one who reached out to me was so super nice. And she is just as much motivated to reach students and to teach them financial literacy. And she gets to do it from a different angle. She gets to work with educators that are in counties that connect with high school students in that way through the OSU side of it. But I know that there's a lot of people just within our state that care about financial literacy. And so I'm learning more about how I can connect with them and how I can stay connected with them to kind of keep the momentum going, so to speak.
Now, just one last question. What is one lesson that you hope that your students take away from you? One, key point that they keep in mind as they move on and throughout their adult life?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to narrow it down to just one. Whew, that's really tough.
Well, don't let us limit you.
One is a starting point.
Okay, I think I can pull it down.
2 or 3 or 5 or 10.
I do tell my students that if they can take away this one thing from this class, then they will be well off. And I believe that habits make up who we are as individuals. And I believe that we all have financial and money habits. They may take form when we're 8, 9 years old, but we all grow up with habits, and we for sure have financial habits. And so I tell my students that we're going to learn a lot of information, good financial education in here, but where they can really find themselves in good financial standing in the future is when they really develop good money habits. And so I believe that teaching what those are really important. And if a student can learn that I can save money now, I can not buy the energy drink or the pretzel at the convenience store or the latte or whatever, if I can just wait to buy that and save my money now and actually be a little more future oriented, then I think we can set up that student and then the generation as very well financially. So I think habits would have to be the one thing I would say.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time to join us today to share your perspective and for all the incredible work that you're doing in your school, for your district, for your students. It's really inspiring, and we're super grateful that we get to know you a little bit better at this year's conference.
Well, thank you for having me. It was awesome. I appreciate you guys.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Credit Chat Live. We hope you learned something new, and we hope that you feel inspired to support the Jumpstart Coalition, to support these incredible teachers like Scott, who are out here doing this important work and making a difference in the lives of their students every single day. Please join us on Credit Chat every Wednesday on X. These chats take place at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and they cover a wide range of financial topics. So I'm sure we have a topic coming up that you might find interesting. And thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Have a great day.